All right, and we are back, and we have with us Amanda DeBellis. Hi, Amanda.
Hey.
So, just to get started, just tell us a little bit about you and the work that you do with AmeriCorps, VPVA, just general. Let's just jump right into it.
Sure, a little background.
Yeah.
Well, my name Amanda.
Hi, Amanda.
I know,
nice
right?
to meet you.
Literally. I work as a full-time public health AmeriCorps team member. I work with the Office of Violence Prevention, Victim Assistance. I do a lot of mental health prevention work, like emotional intelligence workshops, healthy boundaries, healthy relationships, and trying to just do creative mental wellness as well on campus, build community. And that's what I do.
Awesome. Okay, creative. You said creative wellness, right?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit. I've never heard that phrase before. Tell me a little bit more
Might have
about
just
that.
coined it.
I know. There's another phrase that you coined that we're going to get into later, but it might be a little secret skill of yours. It's interesting. Creative wellness.
Yeah, I think it's kind of just, at least for, I don't know if it's for everyone, but for someone like me, being creative really is an essential part of my well-being.
Same thing.
And I think that, just like the same way I brush my teeth in the morning, if I don't take some time throughout the day to write, look at something, read something, I'm not supporting my creative wellness.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. And maybe that's kind of behind the spring zine that VPVA is doing. If you want to tell us a little bit about that.
For sure. So the zine, it was kind of like a passion project. My boss was like, we don't really know what to do with an AmeriCorps person. Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, how about a zine? How about we do some creative writing, art? We give people... At first, it was kind of like survivors, victims, different people alike could have space to share what they want. And it kind of grew into anyone on campus. I want to hold space for the whole community to really share their thoughts.
That's so cool. Tell me a little bit about, so I know we talked a little bit about it, but for people who may not know, what exactly is a zine?
Okay, so a zine is like the best of like a literary journal and a magazine morphed into one. It kind of originated in like political movements and different social movements to really give different groups the ability to control their medium and what they're putting out, what message they want. You know how governments do propaganda? People were like, we want to share our perspectives in a fun, creative way. And thus the zine was born.
Okay. Yeah. So then, from what I'm understanding, so you've got the spring zine, right? And that's going to be paired with an open mic launch party, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I think that it's super fun to get people collected in the zine, but to also give them the space again to really hold the mic and really take up that space.
And so you're looking to have this open mic launch party around when?
Around probably, I'd say, like the first couple weeks of April. Somewhere in there. The date is not booked yet, but soon.
Okay, but submissions are February 17th, right? That's the deadline?
Friday, February 17th for art, writing-based submissions you want in the zine, and then March 1st if you want to submit for the cover contest.
Got it. Tell me a little bit more about the cover contest, because I don't even think we talked about that off air. So what is the cover contest?
It's just like a bonus opportunity. I was trying to think, like, what could really get people engaged and to take ownership over a project like this, because... I'm not representative of the RUC community, so I thought a cover contest would give a certain someone more room to amplify their art, and also will feature it on the RUC VPVA Instagram. All the people entering the contest. So it's like participation award, but still to celebrate art. It doesn't have to be picked to be celebrated.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it seems like your focus is really just about like not only showcasing like the artists that we have on campus, but also giving them the opportunity to really come into their own and like take ownership over.
Yeah, I feel like creativity is not something that, as a student, like, do you feel like your professors are like, yeah, like, you can be creative with it? There's no room for that part of self. You kind of fit the student mold and that's it. And since I'm graduated, I have my master's, I know that fitting the student mold is not going to last outside of getting my degree.
Yeah.
So the more I can integrate these little things I've learned for other people to keep in touch with those parts of themselves so it's not weird later, I feel like that's awesome.
That makes me so happy. Like, even just, like, I feel the same way as I did when you first told me about it, when you approached me.
You're so sweet.
I mean, I just love that idea, and in the theme of the open mic and the zine,
Yeah.
holding space. That's the kind of the phrase that you coined around
Yeah.
this spring zine. So people who are submitting, it's going to be kind of around that theme. So tell me a little bit more about what holding space means to you, what it looks like, how you arrived to kind of make the spring zine centered around that topic.
Yeah. I think that I was kind of, again, I come from a mental health psychology background, so I think I was kind of thinking a lot of times, like, there's stigma around mental health and different things. There's so much stigma around everything, but with mental health, words. But I just thought that holding space gives room for those stigmatized traits that we all have, or who we are, identities, our life, different things going on. It'll give space so that things that we kind of don't own publicly, we can own in this capacity, in this safe space. Because no one will judge. We hope.
Yeah. That's interesting. And that leads me right into my next question, which was, when we were talking about holding space, and I think I might have seen it kind of in the advertisements for it as well.
Yeah.
It's holding space as a theme, but then also there's like kind of second part is holding space without judgment. And I think that's such a key part of it. And I feel like as students, like, well, you're not a student, but I'm a student. A lot of people who are listening are students. This time in our life is just full of judgment from all areas. And
cancel culture, everything.
And not all of it's even bad, but it's, we're judging ourselves. We're judging what should we do? Where should we go? Are we in the right major? Who are we as people? All these different things. And so how would you say that without judgment part, what's so key about that in your opinion? How does that, because to me, the way, when I heard it, holding space and without judgment, both halves of that coin were so important.
Yeah. I think that when I learned in life, like as a writer, that like revision was important, because I think as humans, judging is so innate to us, because like fight or flight, it's primal in some ways, but I totally lost my thought. So
no, you're fine. I'll rephrase, but essentially, holding space is one thing, and bringing people in, right? Bringing in a sense of community, but that without judgment part, how is that the key to kind of really what you're going for?
Okay, now I think I got it.
There you go.
Because we judge so much, I think that like we need to think about it as revisions. I think that if you can reframe how you approach life as trying to grow and be the best version of yourself, and like if someone's judging, can we take it more as feedback? Some people are just, haters, you know what I mean? But I think without judgment for these things that we all hold really close to our chest, we need to be able to talk to it, because it manifests so physiologically that the no judgment part is really important. And if people do say things taboo, it's still a place to learn and grow, and address those things in a comfortable space.
Yeah, and that's such a big part of like what the Learning Center is doing right now. That's like one of our biggest focuses, is trying to make sure that students know, like, there's no judgment here. Like when you get a tutoring session, when you have an exam review session, whenever you come into the office, it's like most of the time you're coming in. I mean, yes, you're coming in for community, but a lot of times you need help with something, and there's nothing wrong with that.
There's no shame in wanting to be the best you can be. When you look at it, that is what it is, point blank. You want to be better at something. Why should you be ashamed?
Yeah. Of course. And so that kind of makes me think. So a lot of people, I think, there's two problems that people have, when it comes to asking for help. Some people don't know how to ask for help, but then there are some people who do know how to ask for help. They know where to go, but they may not always know when it's time. And as students, I find that a lot of times when I'm talking to classmates or different things like that, we're so used to the stress, we're so used to being anxious, the go, that I feel like at times we've kind of just been like, oh, well, that's part of the college experience.
Right?
Yeah. And especially on this campus, a lot of us are working students, we're hard workers, so
no time.
Yeah, and we kind of sometimes, I feel like, take pride in being able to push through.
Oh yeah.
But at times, I think that you got to take a step back and realize when you need someone to hold space for you.
Yes.
And as someone who's graduated, what would you say as a student, where were the times that you kind of recognized, okay, I can do this on my own, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I should?
Yeah. I think I still even grapple with that, because,
yeah, of course.
you're like, oh, like, why can't I handle, like, once it gets really into the thick of things, you know, it's like, oh, I could handle it, and now I'm in it, and it's a lot.
Yeah.
So I think even if you have that thought, as soon as that thought comes up that you're like, wow, this is a lot, this is whatever, who is in your circle that has some skill sets that maybe you can bounce ideas on? Like, using the people around you, like, as resources and, you know, points of connection, because they're going to come to you in the future. So it's almost like mutually flattering to do it anyway, so you might as well. I think as soon as you have that first thought, or if you're looking at it and you're like, wow, this looks like a lot, it never hurts to get a second opinion. Even in advance, even if you're like, I can do this, it's going to be a lot, but I can. Why not get a second opinion? Maybe someone knows how to create it in a faster way, or to do it in a more efficient way. You never know until you explore.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I can even see that in my own progression as a student. When I first started out, I wasn't really too plugged in. I kind of just, I went to class and I came home, and I felt like the workload was so much heavier because I had no one else to even just bounce things off of, or I didn't have at that point, I didn't even know the Learning Center existed, so there wasn't a place or a space I could go to for people who could help me with homework, or even could help me with studying tips, or even just things outside of academia. And so I feel like that community part of it is so important. Add that on top of, if you're a creative person, or whatever your passion product is, you know, tapping into that as well. Like, for me personally, having like opportunities for art and different things, like you're talking about, it really has helped in terms of like my mental health, things like that, which is why, like, I don't know, I feel so passionate about the spring scene as a concept.
No, I love it. You're my biggest cheerleader, and I don't think I would have ran like so full speed ahead. Like, I was on my path, but I think you really did, as I said. You projected me even more and connected me even more. So, see, look at us practicing what I'm preaching.
Yes. And it's funny because it's something that we had talked about when we had first met, about connecting with people kind of being like a skill that you have to practice at. It doesn't come naturally, right? Like, someone who's watching might see you or I here and say, oh, well, they got here because, you know, they naturally have the ability to talk in front of cameras or different things like that. I know I don't. That's something I had to work on.
I'm not even looking.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I think sometimes we can see people with a bunch of connections, or people who are doing a lot of things, and think that just happened overnight, or they were just naturally gifted with that. But a lot of times, it takes
especially
work.
With creative people, right?
Yeah.
Especially when someone, like, I like to paint in my free time. When people say, like, oh, are you an artist? Like, I'll default to writing. Because, you know, I'm no Picasso, not like anyone else can be. But a lot of times it's so easy to think, like, I'm not that trained. But that's how you get better. You mess up, you practice. It looks a mess right now. You do it amazing. Practice, you know?
Yeah, and the thing, too, about that, whether it's art or it's something, you know, whatever your passion is, part of it is self-expression, you know, and it's a part of yourself that you have to hold on to, right? For that creative wellness that you're talking about.
It's like self-exploration meets expression.
Exactly. And it kind of makes me think, I feel like at times, you know, when it comes to our passions, or let's, you know, keep it art focused, since, you know, we're talking about the zine and different things like that, I think sometimes there's the pressure to monetize your creativity, or,
oh my gosh, right?
You know, kind of be performative with it, or, you know, try to compare yourself to other people instead of using it as self-expression.
Yeah.
And I think that the zine gives a really nice opportunity to just let people come as they are, because I think that's such an important part.
Yeah, literally. That's the whole, literally, the concept. You sold it for me. It literally is come as you are, we'll make space. We have a plate ready for you at the table, you know? Come eat, celebrate, share who you are, and it'll be received. You know?
Yeah, that makes me so happy. I can't wait for it. I can't wait. So you say that you lean more towards writing, right?
Yeah.
So how would you? I mean, everyone has writer's block, right? But how would you say? What advice would you give to people who are into writing? How do you kind of like confront that? Ooh. I know it's difficult. It's difficult, but it's something that we all kind of run into.
Yeah, I'm in a block right now too myself.
Really?
So
No, why?
I am, only because now that I'm so focused on the zine, I'm like, I need to focus on creating, like, submission guides and all these different things that I'm like, writing myself is not as flowing right now, because I'm giving my creative energy elsewhere. But for writer's block, I'd say my first recommendation is always to get outside of your normal whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like
your normal frame of reference.
Even like if you like to be creative in your room, like drive to a park.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do. First thing, like if I'm blocked, I'll go to a park where I can see some sort of tree, some foliage.
That's a big one for me too.
Right?
Yeah, being in nature.
Because when you can just, even if you go and you're like, all right, I'm just going to write observationally,
Mm-hmm.
and the more you start to do it, all of a sudden, those leaves are looking crazy in the way you're writing. It's amazing. And you even get to watch people watching. You get to see people live, and you're like, oh, maybe they're in love, or maybe they hate each other. Who knows?
Yeah.
It's just going down. But find new ways.
Mm-hmm.
Your creative process is never going to be, I come home, sit in the chair, it flows, go to bed.
It's not a linear process.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's like loop-de-loop and curl. It's not.
Oh my gosh, this SpongeBob
Yeah.
reference. We love it. We love it.
I was like, I'm going to just SpongeBob.
So that's kind of from a creative writing standpoint, but I know
Yeah.
you've done a lot of academic writing before too. And
kills me.
didn't you mention to me that you did research too, like heavy research?
Yeah, I've done a lot of like lit reviews and other research, like published research articles, and for that, I always found that like having in my experience, working with like a PhD student that was doing research, getting a tutor, like you said, like someone in the learning center that has done research, that's who I would go to. And when you do research, you have like a PI, someone that's like the lead on your project, so they are usually really good about, if you're new to research, helping you with academic writing, but it can be hard to really turn off that, like, even just adjectives. You do not want more than one adjective, like, in a research article.
Really?
Not, like, that literal, but, like, anything that is more than to the point is a no-go.
Interesting.
Yeah. So any flowery language, or, like, you want to describe something in a way you think will better understand, that is not the way. You say, honestly, the mean statistic is that, and if they don't get it, they don't get it. So that's why I stopped doing research, because it's not accessible.
But I mean, it's necessary, especially career-wise, if that's kind of like more of a field that you're going into.
Exactly. It's necessary for the psychology route.
When it comes to, I don't even have this down in my notes, but I'm just curious, like when it comes to like gathering sources, running statistics, different things like that, how do you approach that? Like when it comes to like academic research?
Yeah. It's a lot of like, because if it is like legit research, you also with the IRB board, you kind of need to make sure every process you take, even just like the way you search for literature for a review, it has to be the same process for everything. I have reviewed over like 1,000 different articles and different things just to like, say, do they mention this? Do they mention this? Now I have to read more because they didn't mention this in their abstracts, and I have to do this.
And then you have to do fact checking, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like everything that I review, someone else is also reviewing, and then we see what discrepancies there were, and then review. Add to the manual, and then do it that way the next time.
Oh my gosh.
It's so tedious. But it's really cool when you're like, oh, I'm on the brink of a new advancement. But besides that, it's mid.
But that's, I don't know, that's just really, especially because, I don't know, I haven't done much, like, I have a few classes where I have to do this for this semester, but I haven't done a lot of actual research, so I've always been, wondered, how does that look like?
Yeah, it's super square. The process is very, it's already laid out in front of you, you just have to do it without errors, in a way. And you have to know how to address the errors as well, because that could throw off the whole research that you're doing. So, it's a lot.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah.
So you kind of really do writing of all different kinds, because you've got academic, then you've got creative writing, and then you've also got poetry, right?
Yeah. So, honestly, like, a lot of people are like, what do you write? And I'm like, I write. There's I think, again, like, as we talk about things, like, even just labeling and putting yourself into one box, I think can be so limiting as well to the creative process. Like, either way, you're creating something, no matter the genre,
And the creation is more important than the label itself.
I think if I can get, like, a solid stanza on a page, that's more than anything else.
That's interesting. And I relate to that because I started referring to myself. When people ask you, what do you do? I say, I write, I do different things like that. But for example, like now I'll say, I'm a poet. And they'll be like, oh, do you have anything published? I'm like, no, but I
Yeah,
still
right?
wrote those poems and they're
Literally.
mine. And like, you know, it's kind of back to
They
that.
want you to monetize it.
Exactly. And it's kind of, I don't know, I think, especially after you approached me for that, for the zine, it just gave me the opportunity. And so, you know, I'm so glad other people have it. And even just, you know, other things that are going on campus. Like I know
Yeah.
Active Minds is going to have an open mic, I believe it's on March 7th. And just having those opportunities, I think just allows you to kind of, like you said, take ownership of how you see yourself as an artist, as a person. And I
Yeah.
think that, I don't know, that creative wellness, that's a really good phrase.
I know. I'm gonna like go copyright that when I leave. Oh my god.
Yeah, so final question as we wrap up here. So I would say, let me think here. Because we blew through our notes, but I really want to...
I love talking to you, that's why.
We bounce off each other really
I
well.
know.
But I think in terms of just summarizing everything that we sort of talked about, I would say for someone who is maybe interested in exploring their creative side more,
Yeah.
whether it's, you know, writing, whether it's something else, but someone who may see that as an outlet to kind of relieve some of the stress, relieve some of the day-to-day, especially like
Yeah.
as a student, I know it's difficult, you know, but they may not naturally see themselves as someone who's creative.
Yeah.
How would you push them
Ooh.
in the direction to kind of explore themselves more
I know, because
creatively?
people sometimes they really are like, yeah, no, I can't do any of that. And I'm
Mhm.
like, well, you can't yet. I think it's all about like in psychology, like dialectical behavioral therapy, it's kind of like two truths can exist at the same time.
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, you cannot create something that you think would sell at the MoMA right now,
Mhm.
but you can also put two and two together, and now, look, red and green are mixing into blue.
That's
So,
interesting. Dialectical behavioral
yeah,
therapy.
DBT for short.
Got it.
Yeah.
I gotta remember that.
Yeah, and like CBT, like all about language too, to like, you can't create yet.
Mhm.
Don't like put a cap on your capabilities, because like you set your limits, you know?
Mhm.
Like you could tell me I can't write something, but like until I do it, I don't know.
That's
So
interesting.
you have to be ready to like make a fool out of yourself, one.
Oh, that's a big one. I still
yeah.
struggle with that.
No, I will leave the room looking like a tomato turned red, but I'm like, I would rather leave like that than feel like, what if? I should have asked this person.
Yeah.
Like, when I met you, I was like, if I don't ask you about how you played and different things about you, I would have regretted it.
Mm-hmm.
So I say just shoot your shot. Try some creative thing. Get some colored pencils, you know, get a crayon, doodle on your notes.
It can be that
counts.
simple, though. It really can.
You know?
Yeah.
You hate the way your teacher's teaching today? Write a silly little poem about them. Why not?
I mean, it's building blocks, right?
Right? And especially if people don't want to see therapists, I'm like, journal. Do something.
Journal's a big one.
Right?
I think journaling is good for everyone.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't have to be, like, physical, but even just, like...
anything.
Verbal.
Yeah. Just getting something out. That's the most important. Getting it out. Everything else, it's just background noise.
Yeah.
Dialectical
behavior. I gotta remember that. That's really interesting.
The two parallel lines, two truths.
Wow. That's cool. I've never heard of that before.
Right? I know.
Oh my goodness, I wish we had more time.
I know. Well, we can talk again.
Yes, of course. This was great. Thank you for coming on, just sharing everything that you've been working on, sharing your perspective on all these different things. And you want to just give a final plug for the Spring Zine so everyone knows?
Yeah. If you create any sort of writing in any sort of form, if you create art in any sort of form, please submit. February 17th is the deadline. Might get extended, who knows, but your folks can hear it first. Okay. And then cover contest, March 1st. Please submit.
Got it. Awesome.
We'll take it all.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And we're going to do a few songs that you picked, right?
Ooh,
So you picked those songs, and that's going to be the next few songs that we play, and then we're going to close out the show. So stick around to listen to Amanda's picks, and I will be back in just a few minutes.